สวัสดีค่ะแฟนเพจ Rain of Wine นะคะขอโทษที่ทำให้รอนานนะคะอันนี้ก็จะเป็นเหมือนเป็น EP แรกเลยนะคะที่จะมารีวิวไวน์เซาท์แอฟริกากันค่ะในวันนี้นะคะแล้วก็วันนี้ปุ้ยมีแขกพิเศษเลยนะคะชื่อว่าคุณแซมมูยีลูคาซาค่ะปัจจุบันนะคะเป็นผู้นำเข้าไวน์เซาท์แอฟริกาตัวยงเลยค่ะตัวพ่อมเลยนะคะเนี่ยแล้วก็ตอนที่เขาอยู่เซาท์แอฟริกาเนี่ยค่ะก็มีประสบการณ์นะคะในเรื่องของเป็นซอมเมลีเย่เป็นเฮดซอมเมลีเย่จากรีสอร์ทที่เป็นรีสอร์ทหรูนะคะแล้วก็ให้กับบริษัทไร่ไวน์ที่มีชื่อเสียงในประเทศเซาท์แอฟริกามากมายนะคะอย่างเช่นมีแฟร์วิวนะคะแล้วก็มีอย่างโรงแรมเนี่ยก็คือลิวคอลเลกชันนะคะแล้วก็มีของอัสระไวน์เอสเตทแอนด์โฮเทลเป็นต้นค่ะแล้วก็ยังเคยเป็นผู้ตัดสินไวน์หรือไวน์จัดด้วยนะคะในงานแข่งขันมากมายในประเทศเซาท์แอฟริกาค่ะสวัสดีค่ะคุณแซม Hi Sam and แล้วรายการนี้ก็จะเป็นภาษาอังกฤษนะคะเพราะคุณแซมพูดไทยไม่ได้เลยค่ะ Hi Sam
สวัสดีครับสวัสดีครับ
Okay, so I introduced you as you are head sommelier and also the importer right now.
Yes.
Okay, so what we are doing today, so I just tell my fan that we're going to taste South African wine.
Excellent. So today we will be speaking a little bit about South African wine. What we're trying to showcase, it's pretty much to take you back a little bit of history of South African wine. So South Africa today is considered as a new world wine country, but in fact it's not that new world. South Africa has been making wine since 1652. That is almost 350 years old of
It's
wine
a new
making.
wine, but they have a very long history.
Very long
you say
history. Very long history. They have a lot of ancient soil.
Okay.
They've been making wine since the Dutch time. So it's a very, very long history of wine making. The whole culture, the vine, the soil, the terroir. So it's quite long. So that's why sometimes South Africa, for me personally, I prefer sometimes to say South Africa, it can be between the old and the new old. In between, because
so it's
just
in between.
very old. Yes,
Between
because
new
it's very old
and
in
new
terms
and
of
old.
Making wine.
Okay. And about the terroir that you said is very old soil, which is very unique. So what is the uniqueness of the terroir itself in the South Africa?
In South Africa, what makes the terroir to be so unique, it's you have different type of soil. So we have the granites, we have the clay soil, we have the Glen Rosa soil. So it's a very, very different, diverse kind of soil. Also, we have a very good weather, which is the Mediterranean climate. So with Mediterranean climate, you have a lot of rain during winter period, which is very good for the vine to absorb more water in the soil to keep a reserve. Then the summers are very dry because you need a dry summer. You don't need too much rain during summer because that's the moment where the vine starts really getting maturity, when the grapes are being ripened properly. So when you look at that Mediterranean weather which we have in South Africa, and you also have the influence of Atlantic Ocean,
Like two currents,
which goes through there, and that makes it a perfect landscape for vine growing. That's why South Africa has a good terroir, and any grape variety in fact can grow in South Africa.
So okay, this is all the uniqueness of the South African terroir and also including weather and how it makes the wine of South Africa perfect for you to test. What are the main red grape varieties that we can find in South Africa?
In fact, in South Africa, you find a lot of different type of grape varieties, which most of them will say Bordeaux varieties. So when we're talking about Bordeaux varieties, that's going to be your Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Petit Verdot, Cabernet Franc, and Malbec. That's for the red. For the white, we have the Sauvignon Blanc. You can have the Chenin Blanc as well from France, but grown in South Africa. But in general, what we look as the major grape varieties in South Africa, we will be looking for Cabernet Sauvignon. We'll be looking for stuff like Merlot. We'll be looking for stuff like Pinotage, which is uniquely South African. You don't get Pinotage other places. They can plant it, they can grow it, but it's native from South Africa. And then the Shiraz as well can also produce quite a lot of grapes in South Africa. So I'll be saying in terms of the red, we're looking for Cabernet, Pinotage, and Shiraz and Merlot. as being the main red grape varieties you get in South Africa.
Okay, so what you can introduce us today for the Cabernet Sauvignon?
For today, actually, we'll be looking at the Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah.
So I brought some Cabernet Sauvignon. I brought two different style of Shiraz. So we'll be
Sweet.
looking at a 100% Shiraz. Then we'll be looking at the blend, which is Syrah. So Syrah, Mourvedre with Carignan. So later on, I'll explain to you why do we refer to one as Shiraz and another one as Syrah, while the two grape varieties is the same. So it's just the name
Okay.
can be different, but it's the same
But
grape
it's the same
variety.
grape.
So we'll
Shiraz
touch
or
on
Syrah.
that later when we do a little bit of discussion.
That's great.
So starting with the Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon is the king of red grape varieties. So you get Cabernet Sauvignon pretty much all over the world. From France, where you get it in the blend, and then you get it from Napa Valley in the US, in California. Then you get Cabernet Sauvignon from Chile. You get Cabernet Sauvignon from Australia as well. Okay.
Yep.
So if we look at what now makes a Cabernet Sauvignon from South Africa to taste different compared to Cabernet Sauvignon from Australia,
That's I would love
Napa
to
Valley,
know.
or Chile.
Yeah.
So in fact, the Cabernet from South Africa, we used to refer to them as having a Fanboss aroma.
Fanboss. What is Fanboss, by the way?
So Fanboss is this indigenous plants grown mainly in South Africa in the Western Cape, in the Cape Kingdom flowers. So it's a herbal kind of aroma. It gives you dry herbaceous flavor to the wine. Or a little bit of eucalyptus can come through as well. So it falls in that kind of category, herbaceous, but mainly dry kind of herbs. So that is very typical to South African Cabernet Sauvignon. Or sometimes you can see South African Cabernet Sauvignon will have aroma such as cedarwood. That is very uniquely.
So that's impact to the wine.
That impacts
That
the
plant.
flavor. Yes, it impacts the flavor of the wine as well. Because what happens is that the vineyards are grown very almost in community, close to these plants. So you have this natural environment where the aroma can evaporate, or like when the, let's say, the bird can feed on the flower and feed to the grapes as well. So you have that interchange of the environment impacting the aroma of
so not only the
grape.
soil and climate, but also the surrounding environments, like flowers and things like close to the vineyard.
Exactly.
Cool.
Let's say, for instance, if you go to places such as in France, in southern France, you're gonna find that the vines are grown, vine and olives, or rosemary or thyme on the same environment.
Wow.
And when you smell those wines from southern parts of France, then they refer to it as having a garlic aroma. Garlic, it's almost like rosemary,
that's what I heard.
wild herbs, because the vines is grown in that environment together with other type of plants. So it does impact the flavor.
Let me translate this to my Thai fan because Fanboss นะคะที่เมื่อกี้พูดคือมันเป็นพืชที่เป็นตระกูลพุ่มอะค่ะที่จะพบได้อยู่ที่เซาท์แอฟริกาเท่านั้นเลยอะค่ะมันจะเป็นพุ่มเล็กๆสีขาวๆคือตัว Fanboss เนี่ยสะกดว่า F Y N B boy O แล้วก็ S นะคะสามารถที่จะไปเซิร์ชใน Google ได้นะคะว่าหน้าตาเขาเป็นยังไงหรือว่าทีหลังปุ้ยจะไปใส่แล้วแปะรูปให้ดูทีหลังหรือกันแต่เอาไปว่าเซาท์แอฟริกันเนี่ยจะมีพืชชนิดนี้เนี่ยค่ะอยู่ใกล้ๆกับตัววินยะหรือไร่องุ่นเลยซึ่งมันมีผลต่อไวน์ก็คือทำให้ไวน์เนี่ยมีกลิ่นของความเป็นเฮิร์บก็คือเป็นสมุนไพรสีเขียวๆเป็น dry herb นะคะก็จะมีกลิ่นอยู่ในนั้นด้วยซึ่งเป็นเขาเรียกว่าอะไรเป็นคาแรคเตอร์สำคัญนะคะของตัว South African Cabernet Sauvignon ค่ะ so that is all about the Fanboss and then we will go next
And in fact, if you look at Cabernet Sauvignon, as I say, as a king of red grape variety, it can grow pretty much anywhere in South Africa. But the best Cabernet Sauvignon in South Africa comes from specific terroir, specific area. So in South Africa, you'll find that the Cabernet Sauvignon, which are grown close to the sea, close to the Atlantic Ocean, they're going to have a little bit of refrain aroma. The wine will have a lot of tannin. The wine going to be much more fuller bodied, and the wine going to be very dry. Then when you start moving from the coastal, which is close to the sea, and moving inland, the land area become much more warmer. The weather will change. It's become a little bit hot compared to when you're close to the sea. And those wine inland will now have much more full-bodied, but the aroma will be kind of warm spice.
Okay, so
robust.
let me wrap up. So the land that growing Cabernet Sauvignon close to the sea.
Yes.
So it has like a body,
Yes.
but less body than the quite
That-
inland things.
Quite inland, yes.
Okay.
Also, but the acidity for the wine of the grape grown close to the sea will have higher acidity.
Okay, so it's higher acidity.
Higher acidity because of the
Okay.
cooler area.
Yep.
The cooler the area
Yep.
is, the wine will have more acidity
Okay.
and a lot of tannin, dryness on the palate.
Okay.
Compared to when it's inland area, it's warmer, it's round, and it's softer.
Okay.
So, but just to give you an idea, if you really want to drink
Yeah,
some of
that's
the
great.
best Cabernet Sauvignon from South Africa, you'll be looking for areas such as Stellenbosch.
Wow, that is a very well-known.
That
Wine
is a
region.
signature. So it's almost like you drinking wine from Bordeaux. Someone
Yeah.
from South Africa will tell you that Stellenbosch.
So what I
have
heard is
those
Stellenbosch
characteristics.
has a nickname like the Napa Valley of America.
Yes, so Stellenbosch is kind of a nickname like Napa Valley or
Yeah.
Bordeaux because they have the best soil and the weather is very good. It's a coastal region. It's close to the sea. And so it's so amazing. The soil is almost red kind of type of soil with a lot of
I
granite.
can't wait to taste.
So Cabernet Sauvignon from Stellenbosch definitely is the deal.
And this from
Actually, in fact,
Stellenbosch?
the Stellenbosch Cabernet Sauvignon is what we're going to test today.
Wow, cool. So it's from South Africa, from Stellenbosch.
This is from South Africa, from Stellenbosch. It's actually the wines we're testing. These are the wines which I do import in Thailand. It's a very small boutique wine estate. Only make about 4 different types of wine, and all made in minimal or smaller quantity. So the Cabernet we're testing today, in fact, it's actually blended with a little bit of Merlot. So we're doing a 2015 vintage, which was really a brilliant
Very
vintage
brilliant
in South
vintage.
Africa. So
Yeah.
really a great vintage. This one was mature for about 18 months
Okay.
in French oak barrel.
Just
And
only
then
French oak? you
Only
use?
French oak, no American. And then it was further mature in the bottle for
Okay.
another 12 months. So we're looking for
Wow.
about 30 months of maturation before the wine.
So now it's
gets
ready to
released.
drink.
It's perfect to drink. And the best thing, the 2015 was really one of the great vintage. If we're looking to great vintage in South Africa for the past 10 years, we should be counting 12, 15, 18, and 17. Those are the best vintage for the past 10 years in South Africa.
จำเลยนะคะ ปีเหล่านั้นเลยค่ะ ที่ควรค่าแก่การซื้อมาเก็บกิน Now let's taste the wine.
Excellent. That's actually the part I was looking forward to. The testing is always a great part.
เสียงสวรรค์ไหมคือแบบว่า เทมาดูสีสิคะ โอ้โห มีความเข้ม เห็นเลยว่ารู้เลยว่าบอดี้อ่ะ น่าจะ
So
สู
you
ง
can
อยู่
see the color already. When you look at our glass as we just pour this wine, the color it's really deep and dark. That's what you really look from a good cab. You know, very deep, dark color. Wow, such beautiful legs. You can see on the glasses already.
Wow, the color is really like a ruby red, like
Yeah,
very
ruby
bright.
kind of red brick. You
Brick,
know?
yeah.
Red brick because the one is
Because when I see the
maturing
hue,
now.
yeah, it's quite
So you have-
orange.
yes, you have an orange hue,
Yes.
slightly brown.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's also indicate the maturation, the age of the wine, because the wine is now about 6 years, so it's changing
ขอถอดนะคะ
also its body.
Wow.
First, the notes there when you smell the wine, it's those blackberries coming through. You get that mulberry, and then there is that notes I refer to you, the cedar wood. Huh? There's that
I
lovely
can
cedar
smell the
note.
first note is cedar. Not the fruity, but it's the wood
Cedar,
something.
the wood.
Yeah,
the
it's
cedar
very
wood.
fragrant wood.
Yes, the cedar wood is very typical
Very
in Cabernet
outstanding.
from South
Whoa.
Africa.
คุณ
Lovely
ผู้
touch
ช
of
มคะ
Fanboss.
นี่ยังไม่ได้แกว่งก่อน
Almost
นะ คือ
wild herbs, but it's dry. So the herbs are not green, it's are dry.
กินเขาปะทะแรกมาเนี่ย มันไม่ใช่เป็นฟรุตตี้นะ ไม่ใช่ผลไม้มากนะ มันเป็นกลิ่นของไม้หอมๆชิ้นหนึ่งเมื่อกี้เขาก็บอกแล้วเป็นไม้ซีดาซึ่งปุ้ยได้กลิ่นไม้ซีดาเหมือนกันนะคะ
And you know, the best thing actually, you need to get your vineyard must be like a clean, virus-free. Because if your vine are virus infected, for instance, with leaf roll virus, it's gonna affect the maturation of the vine. So the leaves gonna start rolling on the vine, so it doesn't get proper photosynthesis with the sun, and then the grapes are not going to mature properly, not gonna ripen properly. Then the wine will smell almost green. So when you start smelling, if it smells too green, it's not good, because that is methoxypyroxene. So it shouldn't smell green. It must be dry herbs,
green, but it's dry herbs.
Dry herbs like your bay leaves, thyme,
like that, like garlic that you said.
Garlic, yes.
It's a garlic combinations, really. It really smells so good.
Then the nose, it's not that punching, not too strong, because this we're using French oak barrel. It's much more classic. If we use American oak barrel here, the one was almost going to have an Australian kind of profile.
That's so strong.
That's strong, sweet spice, a sweet smell coming through because of American oak. If you get a Cabernet from Coonawarra, it's totally different compared to Cabernet from South Africa. And that's why I always say that give your palates time to taste, look and find different style of wine, because wine from South Africa are not the same with wine from California or wine from Chile or wine from France. It's a different taste profile. It's a different terroir.
So we can say it's like a South African style.
South African style, yes. The more you get familiar with this, you should be able now to start even picking this wine. If you are in a blind tasting, you'll know this is New World, but this kind of New World style, it's coming from South Africa. It has a distinct aroma.
It's distinct with what you told me, the green and cedar hits into my nose. Very outstanding.
On the palate,
you want some speedball?
so it's full-bodied.
It's full body.
Little bit of dry herbs coming on your aftertaste. Dry tannin. The wine is very dry, but well integrated. You get the fruits, the tannin. There is a very nice balance in the wine. Because that's pretty much what you're looking for. You need your tannin not to be too much, not to be all over the place. You need a tannin to be refined. So the wine is dry, but with refined tannin. The fruit is following through. The acidity is there. So that's what you get as a triangle. So the wine is nicely balanced. And it's still a lot of age to go. It's going to age fade again for another 10 years.
Can be aged, because I can feel some acidity. It's
the
still
acidity
like
is
medium and high.
Still have the acidity is there,
still
the
there.
tannin and the fruit. So the wine can still carry on again for another 10 years to late
คือ
time.
มันไม่รู้สึกถึงความแบบแทนนินของเขาเลยอะค่ะ มันยังเก็บได้อีกนะ แล้วปุ้ยรู้สึกถึงความเป็น acidity คือยังมีความเปรี้ยวอยู่ มันยังมีความยังได้อีกอะมันยังไปได้อีกอะดังนั้นปุ้ยมองว่าตัวเนี้ยมันยังไปได้อีกสัก10 ปีปุ้ยว่าน่าจะพอดีเหมาะเหม่งเลย แต่ตอนนี้ก็อร่อยแล้วนะคะ คือพอ on the palate พอกินเข้าไปเนี่ย มันมีความเป็น berries แบบ black berries มาเป็น plum มามีความเป็น herb เข้ามา พอลงไปสักพักนึงเนี่ย มันมีความเป็นกลิ่นของไม้เข้ามาละซึ่งชัดเจนมาก อันนี้คือเขาเรียกว่ามันเป็นเหมือนแอฟริกันสไตล์เนาะ South African style มากกว่าที่จะไปทางด้านออสเตรเลียหรือไปทางด้านอเมริกาที่มันมีความแบบหวานกว่านี้แล้วก็เหมือนเป็นช็อกโกแลตเป็นความเป็นโทสต์แต่อันเนี้ยไม่รู้สึกถึงมันเลย
Yes.
I'm sorry.
As you're saying, actually, that it does not have that chocolatey, that toast. You don't really get that.
No.
And normally you'll get those kind of style when you're dealing with Australian Cabernet. You're really gonna get those
or in
dark
America.
Chocolates or in the US because of that American oak tend to have that kind of impact to the flavor profile of the wine. While when you stick with the French oak barrique, that will give you a classic style. Right? It's a more drier, classic, dry herbs kind of style, or your pencil shavings kind of style. Not too much on the chocolates or the cinnamon style, which you get from American oak barrique.
What about the fruity inside that? It's blackberries, plums, and oh my gosh, that's very, very good wine to me. My personal.
That's such a mixture of blackberries. You get plum, There's a lot of blueberries, so you crush all together. That's why it's really very fruity and it's sitting nicely on the palate. And in fact, it has quite a lengthy finish. You can feel the wine.
I can feel here, still
throat,
warm.
still warm, and
yes,
the aftertaste. So that's really what you get. And also another thing, which makes South African wine quite early drinkable. It's just the style of this wine. You don't need to wait when it's too old. It's early accessible. 6 years old, but perfect to drink it now. Yet you can still keep it for a further 10 years.
I think to me, I will keep it maybe 5 more years, and then I'll taste it again.
And taste it again.
It's gonna be not less acidity, and it's maybe well balanced.
Yes, it's gonna become much more well balanced. It's gonna become now more meaty. When it's aging, it's become meaty. It's become like sandalwood. That's the profile you start getting. The fruit's gonna start disappearing as the time goes. You're not really gonna taste much of these blackberries anymore. The wine we have now is savory. Savory, it's almost those spicy savor going through on your palate.
Very good wine. เริ่มกึ่มๆแล้วค่ะคุณผู้ชมนะคะก็เกี่ยวกับแคปนะคะปุ้ยจะมีอีก2คำถามนะคะที่อยากจะถามคุณแซมนะคะว่าไวน์ตัวนี้แคปของแอฟริกาเนี่ยเหมาะกับการทานอาหารแบบไหนแล้วก็เราจะดูได้ยังไงล่ะว่าไอ้ไวน์แคปเนี่ยมันดีหรือไม่ดียังไงนะคะ Okay, for the last 2 questions about the Cabernet Sauvignon from South Africa. So for the questions I would love to ask you first is how can you tell it's a good or bad Cabernet Sauvignon?
First of all, with a Cabernet Sauvignon, one thing which is very easy to detect if the wine is faulty or it's not really a good cab, it's you need to look at this flavor profile. When you're smelling the wine, if it smells too green, if it smells very, very green, it's already not a good cab. That's a fault already. You need to understand that Cabernet Sauvignon, it's a combination of Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc. That's how you come to get Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yep.
So, Sauvignon Blanc tend to be very green, and Cabernet Franc can also be green. Then they have this chemical called methoxyparaxine. That's when you smell Sauvignon Blanc, smell too green, it's the methoxyparaxine. So, methoxyparaxine in the Cabernet Sauvignon, you can only get it when your grape is unripe. So, when you pick the grape, it's still unripe. It still have a lot of green flavor profile coming from methoxyparaxine. And then when you smell the wine, it smells like green leaves. That's already the fault. So, it shouldn't smell like that.
Okay.
If you're getting herbaceous, it must be much more dry herbs. That's in a good note, but not when it's too green. And also another thing, it's if your vineyard it's virus infected. As I spoke earlier on about the leaf roll virus, you get also a lot of green character, especially in the Cabernet Sauvignon. So that's why a lot of farms they're kind of now planting new vine to remove all the vine infected with the virus to have a clean vineyard, so your fruit is going to be very clean as well, to avoid all the effect of the methoxyparaxine in the Cabernet Sauvignon.
Okay.
So that's the big fault you get from Cabernet Sauvignon. It's going to be the methoxyparaxine. Then it's going to smell very green.
Green, like
on
green.
Your nose.
How green
yes,
is that?
Smell like the
like
green
capsicum?
leaves. Capsicum, yes.
That is
capsicum, green pepper. It is a fault for Cabernet Sauvignon.
I can't find that smell like capsicum or the green bell pepper in the wine from Bordeaux.
Not much. It is a fault. When it's a lot of green, it's a fault. It shows you that the grape were harvested when it was still underripe. The grape didn't ripen properly. Remember when the grape is growing, it starts green until it's going to change the color to purple to dark before we harvest them. So we also check the level of methoxyparaxine because it's the sunlight. So the leaf absorbs the sunlight during photosynthesis. If the leaf cannot absorb the light properly, it's not going to create enough photosynthesis. When you have lesser photosynthesis, that's when you have a lot of greener character in your red wine. In the case of Cabernet Sauvignon, then it's going to be the methoxyparaxine.
Okay. สรุปเป็นไทยง่ายๆนะคะถ้าเกิดเป็นฟอลของ Cabernet Sauvignon ค่ะคุณจะได้กลิ่นความที่มันเหม็นเขียวมากๆค่ะอย่างเช่นกลิ่นพริกหยวกแบบพริกหยวกที่มันไม่สุกอ่ะ เขาบอกว่ามันเป็นสารที่มันเกิดจากตัวเมทอกซีนพาร็อกซีนนะคะที่ทำให้เกิดกลิ่นสีความเหม็นเขียวแบบนี้นะคะซึ่งมันคือเป็นเขาเรียกว่ากลิ่นฟอลต์หนึ่งของ Cabernet Sauvignon ค่ะมันเกิดจากการที่ตัวองุ่นเนี่ยอาจจะสังเคราะห์แสงเนี่ยไม่เพียงพอนะคะทำให้เขาเหมือนสุกไม่พอมันไม่สุกน่ะมันก็เลยมีกลิ่นเหม็นเขียวอยู่อย่างนั้นนะคะซึ่งกลิ่นที่ทำให้รู้สึกว่ากลิ่นที่บอกได้ว่าเป็นคาร์บอเนตที่มันดีเนี่ยก็จะเป็นกลิ่นที่มีความเป็น dry herb นะคะอย่างเช่นพวกออริกาโนพวกแบบใบไทม์ที่เป็นแห้งแล้วอะไม่ใช่สดนะถ้าได้กลิ่นพวกนั้นเนี่ยมันแปลว่าโอเคคุณได้ good cap ละแต่ถ้าเกิดเป็นที่แบบออกเหม็นเขียวมากมันแปลว่าคุณอาจจะได้แคปที่แบบไม่ดีไปนะคะก็ต้องไปดูเอาเนาะว่าแบบในไวนารี่ตัวนั้นอะไรที่นั้นเนี่ยมีอะไรอยู่ตรงนั้นหรือเปล่าหรือเทคนิคที่เขาใช้มีอะไรหรือเปล่าอย่างเงี้ยนะคะเป็นต้นนะคะOkay, so this is about good and bad Cabernet Sauvignon. And let's pair with the Thai food or any kind of food for this wine. For
this one, let's say Cabernet in general, or South African Cabernet, a very good piece of steak will be always an easy road to go. Right? So you have a nice cut of steak or fillets, then that works very good for Cabernet Sauvignon. But if you look also in Thai culture, Thai cuisines are quite very spicy. You have different style of dishes. So if you have, let's say even the kapau musag, because it's very spicy, right? When you taste it with a wine like this, which is also full-bodied, nice spice notes, aroma coming through, it's gonna pair very well. So it can work with a lot of Thai dishes.
With the spicy?
Yes.
Spicy
with the
is fine.
spiciness, it's fine. So now one thing I want to take your attention is the difference between spicy and hot. When it's hot, we sommelier, we refer to hot usually as chili.
Yes.
When it's too hot, too much of the chili, does not really work very well for red wine because it's gonna clash with the tannin. The tannin in the wine is very high, and then you have a lot of chili in the dish, it's gonna clash. It's not gonna balance.
Okay.
Yeah? When you have a dish which is a lot of chili, then you need more acidity and less tannin. That you can do a Pinot Noir.
Right.
Because it's less tannin with more acid. The acid can soften or reduce the heat from the chili. But if it's just a normal spice, your cinnamon or your cardamom and stuff like that, the wine can still pair properly with the dish.
ที่ปุ้ยย้ำถามเขาเนี่ยว่ามันไปกับความเผ็ดของแบบอาหารไทยได้ไหมเนี่ยเขาก็เลยบอกว่าในฐานะซอมเมลีเย่เนี่ยไอ้คำว่ามันเผ็ดเนี่ยมันสไปซี่กับความว่าฮอตหรือความว่าที่ว่าฮีทหรือความว่าร้อนเนี่ยมันไม่เหมือนกันนะในทางที่เป็นของไทยปุ้ยมองว่าเป็นทางฮอตหรือคำว่าฮีทมากกว่ามันเกิดจากความเผ็ดของพริกอะค่ะซึ่งมันก็เหมาะกับไวน์ตรงนี้นะเพราะว่าความที่มีความเปรี้ยวอยู่ยังมีแบบไอตัวความเปรี้ยวชุ่มฉ่ำของความเปรี้ยวเนี่ยมันทำให้ความเผ็ดร้อนเนี่ยมันลดลงนั่นเองดังนั้นแยกให้ถูก What about spicy?
The spiciness is gonna work properly.
About sommelier things, about spiciness things. So how you can describe the spiciness flavor in that?
We describe a spiciness dishes as such a dish which the flavor profile can really stand out in the dish. Let's say you're cooking a lamb. You rub some black pepper or white pepper, then you put a little bit of rosemary. That's a spiciness. It's gonna raise the dish to a certain level. You get more spice. But when I was referring to the heat, that's specifically for the chili when it's very hot. That's hot, serious hot.
Okay. Serious hot.
So that's the chili. But spice, any other different types of spice can really just give.
ดังนั้นอีตัวเนี้ยไปดีกับน้ำจิ้มแจ่วก็ได้นะแล้วก็พวกเนื้อสเต็กเสือร้องไห้ไปได้พวกแกงที่เป็นแกงแดงแกงเผ็ดเป็ดย่างไอตัวเนี้ยไปได้หมดเลยค่ะเพราะปุ้ยกินแล้วก็โอเคนะยิ่งเก็บไปอีก5ปีไอความเปรี้ยวตัวเนี้ยมันจะลดลงปุ้ยว่าก็เหมาะกับสเต็กแล้วล่ะใครชอบแบบเปปเปอร์สเต็กไปย่างสเต็กแบบวากิวอะไรอย่างเงี้ยตัวนี้เหมาะโอเคก็หวังว่าตัว Cabernet Sauvignon ของเซาท์แอฟริกานะคะผู้ชมอาจจะมีปุ้ยว่าได้รับแล้วล่ะว่าโอเคได้ข้อมูลที่เพียงพอแล้วว่า Cabernet ของที่เซาท์แอฟริกาเป็นยังไงชิลีเป็นยังไงนะคะของอเมริกายังไงนะคะก็คิดว่าน่าจะง่ายสำหรับผู้ชมแล้วแหละในการเลือก Cabernet Sauvignon ที่จะตรงจริตหรือโดนใจคุณสักขวดหนึ่ง